Hello and welcome to part 2 of China religion. We are going to look at Buddhism now, the core beliefs of Buddhism, and I'm going to try very hard not to say the word a bunch. I listened back to my old video and realized that I say the word a lot, so I'm going to try very hard not to, but we'll see. It's going to be very difficult. So let's look at core beliefs of Buddhism. Core beliefs of Buddhism is this. They believe that all human suffering and pain is caused by a desire for wealth. Wow. Let's try that again. For wealth and selfish pleasures. So the Buddha taught that, as we learned in our last video, that all human suffering is caused by human desire. The need for things that they can't have is the reason why people suffer. So this pain is caused by this need for wealth and selfish pleasures. They can only find enlightenment and true happiness by giving up, squeeze that one in there, giving up desires through self-denial, so choosing yourself that you're going to not give them to, like, you're not going to take part in it, like self-denial is you are denying it yourself, and meditation. Not medication. I almost spelled medication the other day. It's meditation. So in order to become enlightened and find true happiness, you have to give up things by giving up through self-denial, choosing that I am not going to partake in this, I am stepping away from it, and also through meditation. Buddhism has a lot to do with meditation. You're going to see it quite a bit. It's a common theme throughout Buddhism, so we see that here. Now, moving farther into Buddhism, we have a couple of different numbered things. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the Four Noble Truths. So these are the four things that Buddhists all believe, kind of like a common set of things that is believed throughout, like common beliefs. I'm trying to think of something that I could equate that to in other religions. Maybe you can think of something where it's a set of all these things. This is believed throughout the entire religion. So the first one is that all life is suffering. All life is suffering. To live is to suffer. And this suffering is caused by our craving, which I think was an interesting word they used for it. The crave for something, the need for something. And that's what it says here, or wanting things. So suffering is caused by our human craving. Now, how do we get rid of this craving, you might ask? Well, Buddhists answer that here in number 3. Craving can only be stopped by ending, or suffering can only be stopped by ending our craving. By ending that desire to have things that we can't have is the only way you can stop your suffering. And this only happens through carefully disciplined, disciplined and moral life. Only a carefully disciplined and moral life, such as the life of concentration and meditation, can end our craving. So the only way to end your suffering is through this very carefully disciplined and moral life. Believing that by concentrating, denying yourself of things that you don't need or don't have to have, and through meditation, are you able to end these cravings. Now, the other numbered thing that we get into here, so we have the Four Noble Truths. All life is suffering. Suffering is caused by our craving. The end the craving is the only way to end suffering, and you have to do this through meditation and concentration, really living that moral life. So how do we do this? What is my path that I choose? They don't just say, go at it, figure it out on your own. Buddhism has what's called the Eightfold Path. I don't think you got over there. The Eightfold Path is the only way to achieve nirvana. Now, you've maybe heard of nirvana before. Maybe if you listen to like music, Nirvana's a band. But this is a different kind of nirvana. This is the nirvana of eternal peace and bliss, like that like moment where you are peaceful, nothing bothers you, if life is bliss. It is nirvana. That is what all Buddhists kind of strive for. And to do that, they follow this eightfold plan. So the first step here is to make sure that you have the right goals. Now, I don't know what those goals are, but I'm assuming that it would be something along the lines of denying yourself of things you don't need, not chasing after wealth, and those other like unnecessary things. You also have to have the right perspective. You have to have the right perspective. Looking at life through the right lens, knowing that these are the things that I need to do, having a positive attitude about it. In addition to that, you have to be aware. So to be aware of the world around you, of the spirit around you, the things that are going on, and of the needs of others. Let me erase here. So we have the right goals, the right perspective. You have to be aware. You also have to act in a worthy manner. That means you're not acting like a fool, basically. You're not going out and acting ridiculous. You're acting in a way that is worthy of Buddhism, that is worthy of the Buddha. You only speak the truth. Now, obviously, we know that this is difficult. We are human beings. We sometimes lie. It's a thing that we do. But here, to speak the truth, I don't know if they mean that literally all the time. I would assume that's probably part of it. But to speak the truth of the Buddha, to speak the truth of the world, sharing the message of Buddhism would be my guess is what they mean here. Not just like the literal speak only the truth. I'm assuming that's important too. But you need to live righteously. This is a fun word to spell. Righteously. So again, going back to that acting in a worthy manner, being aware of the world. So acting righteously, acting in a way that is respectful, that is basically living righteously. Don't act like a fool. Don't say things or do things that are unworthy of you. This one I thought was kind of cool. It says to respect all living things. It's a very common thing for you to see many Buddhists also be vegan or just vegetarian. They'll be a part of animal activist groups and things like that. It's very common, not all the time, but that's because of this respecting all living things, believing that all things have a soul, have a purpose. And we're going to talk about that more here in a little bit when we get into karma and reincarnation. But this belief that all things are important, all living things have a soul and are worthy, and so treating them with respect. And then, of course, you can't have the Eightfold Path without meditation. So number 8 is just to meditate. Yoga, actually, the workout of yoga, or like the active yoga, began, I believe, in Buddhism, and it has grown since then. There are some forms of yoga that are more religious. They would tie more to Buddhism. Not all forms of yoga are like that. There is some yoga that is strictly workout yoga, but there is some yoga that does tie to this idea of meditation, being one with yourself, being one with the world around you. So that's what we see this come from. Yoga is very common among Buddhists as well. So here's where Buddhism kind of separates from the other religions that we've talked about. So far we've talked about Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and all of those have believed in one God. It's been monotheistic. Buddhism is very different. Buddhists actually do not believe in a single supreme being. There we go. Supreme being. Like God. So Buddhists don't have God. They don't believe in a God. They believe in the spirit around you. They don't necessarily worship anything in particular. Many people think that Buddhists worship Buddha, and that is not the case. I would maybe equate Buddha to maybe being like Mohammed, where in Islam we talked about how Mohammed was not worshipped. He was a prophet, and Buddha would be kind of like that, starting this kind of religion, but he's not worshipped in any way, shape, or form. It's just his image that is sometimes brought into the homes as a reminder to live the Eightfold Path. They also don't have any primary sacred texts. So they don't have anything that's like the Bible or the Quran, the Torah. They don't have anything that's like that because they just don't believe in that. It's very different from what we've looked at. They do have, their basic beliefs are found in some books. These books are called sutras. So you have a picture here of a sutra, and I'll kind of make it bigger so you can see it. So this is an example of a sutra. It's written in a language that I can't read. I'm not even quite sure what language that is, to be honest. But it's written in another language. This is what their kind of books would look like. Be very colorful, very bright. So that's what we see here with a sutra. There's also one basic belief that you've maybe heard of before, maybe a little bit familiar with. We use it in common, like kind of common currents, but we don't believe in it, or most people, I shouldn't say we, most people don't believe in it the way that Buddhists do. Buddhists believe in karma. So you've ever heard the saying, like, what goes around comes around? That's what karma is. So karma is this idea that what you do will come back around, again, to bite you in the butt. For Buddhists, that's part of the reason why they choose to live righteously and act in a worthy manner, is because what goes around comes around. So if they continue to act righteously, they will have righteous things happen to them. And same thing in the other direction. If they choose to act like a fool, then they're going to get their butts kicked later down the road. So we have that. They also believe in this idea of reincarnation, which is maybe something that you've heard about before as well. It's this continuous cycle of life and death. So it's believed in Buddhism if you live a righteous life, that when you die, you'll come back again as something that is righteous. Maybe it's a person again. They very much believe in past lives. That's part of the reason why they also believe to respect all living things, because it's possible to come back as an animal or something like that. We aren't going to get into the specifics here, but there are some regions of the world that, for example, India they have this thing with cows. They don't eat beef or anything along those lines. It's not that they think cows are holy or anything like that, but it's kind of like a reincarnation. It goes along with this idea of reincarnation. We'll visit it again when we get into Hinduism. Try not to think too much about it right now. I want to just kind of like glaze over it before we moved on past it, because it is an important part of Buddhism. So I wanted to make sure that I brought it up, but I didn't want to make it into a whole big thing. So try not to get too caught up into it. But on that note, guys, that's going to be it. There is not going to be any homework that goes along with this today. We're just doing the notes. So I'm going to kind of let you go here. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment in the Google Classroom page where your social studies notes are located, or you can drop a comment underneath this video. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Good luck.